Hi, this session is on percentages, ratios, and rate revision. So practice test questions for your upcoming test. Okay, so our first section will be on percentages. And the first question says, look at the following diagram. And A, what fraction is shaded, and B, write this as a percentage. So please, with all these questions, have a go first and then compare your answers. Now, whenever you are dealing with questions like this, where you have a diagram and there's parts of a fraction or parts of the diagram shaded, always count how many, in this case, how many squares there are in total. That will be the denominator of our fraction. So here I can see I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 12 squares in total. That's my denominator. And then I can see my numerator will be how many of those squares are shaded. We've got 1, 2, and 3. So let's write our fraction. So I have written my fraction, so 3 shaded parts out of 12 in total, 12 squares. Now, even if the question doesn't tell you to simplify, we should always simplify our fractions. So I can divide both by a factor of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, so we can see we end up with a quarter. So a quarter of those squares are shaded. Now, part B asks us to write this as a percentage. Now, we know to turn anything into a percentage, you just times it by 100 and add your percentage symbol at the end. So let's do that. Now, it doesn't matter which fraction you actually choose. If you multiply 3/12 by 100 or a quarter by 100, you will get the same percentage. It's easier to work with simplified fractions instead of, so you're dealing with small numbers, especially if you have no calculator. So if I chose to work with a quarter, I will times that by 100 or 100 over 1, and we'll write this on the end so we don't forget to add it into our question. Otherwise, our answer will be wrong. Okay, so just say we didn't have a calculator. To simplify this, anything from top and bottom, I can see I got a 4 down here. So I can divide by 4 and divide by 4 up there. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 100 divided by 4 I know is 25. And now multiply across. 1 times 25 is 25, and 1 times 1 is 1. So I end up with 25%. Okay? Now you may have known that already mentally. A quarter as a percentage is 25%. Okay? As a decimal, it's 0.25. We always see that 25 when we're dealing with a quarter. But if the question said to show working out, well, there you go. Okay, question 2 asks us to write 25 as a percentage of 200. Okay, so with questions like these, once again, we're turning a number into a fraction. Into a percentage. So 25 as a percentage of 200. It's sort of like saying, if you got 25 out of 200 for a test score, what's your percentage? So first step is write it as a fraction. So 25 out of 200. Okay, that's your first step. And then to turn that into a percentage, we know we just times it by 100. And then over 1. And then all you're going to do is you can use your calculator if you've got your calculator during your test. By hand, it's not hard at all. Simplify anything from top and bottom. So straight away, I've got a 0 here and a 0 there, 0 there, 0 there. So I've divided by 100 basically. And I'm left with now, there's 1 over 1 here, so 25 over 2. Okay, so now the question doesn't specify to leave it in fraction form or decimal form, so it's up to you. But don't leave it as an improper fraction. So we'll turn it into a mixed fraction. So how many times can 2 fit into 25 basically? Or another way of saying it is, what's 25 divided by 2? Doing it by hand, I can just say, okay, 2 into 2. If it helps, let's just write it as a division. So 25 goes under the bridge, decimal point ready, add some zeros, 2 on the outside. So 2 into 2 goes once evenly, no remainders. 2 into 5 goes 2, 4, so 2 times, remainder 1. So now we're in a decimal end. And 2 into 10 goes 5 times evenly. So our final answer is 12.5%. So there I got a decimal. As a fraction, you would have had 12.5% if you left it in fraction form. Now, be very careful. This question here, it says 25 as a percentage of 200. It is not saying what is 25% of 200. Because sometimes students think, oh, okay, 25% of 200 is what it's asking me. And they go 25 over 100 of 200, and then they and they end up getting 50%. So if you got 50%, that's a mistake you made. The question is not asking for this 25% of 200. It's asking you to write 25 as a percentage of 200. So when you see those kind of questions, think I have to write a fraction first. Write 25 over 200, then times it by 100 to get the percentage. Okay, our next question on percentages relates to finding the percentage profit or loss. So here's our question. Ross buys a ticket to a concert for $125, but is later unable to go. He sells it to his friend for $75. Calculate the percentage loss Ross made. Okay, so this just summarizes what we have. Ross bought his ticket, original price was $125, and then he later sold it for $75. So clearly he's lost money. So this is a loss, not a profit. And to calculate, now if you remember, to calculate the percentage profit or loss, you have to write it as a fraction first. So the profit or the loss that's made over the original value. And of course, to turn it into a percentage, you times it by 100. So basically there's two steps involved. First is, what's the profit made or the loss made? Write it as a fraction over the original value, and then just times it by 100. So let's try this with this question. So original value is $125. So the first step is, we'll just write step 1. Step 1 is, what's in this case the loss? So $125 take away 75, which leaves us with $50, so 50. Okay, so that's the loss that was made, so $50. Now we're going to turn that into a percentage of the amount the original amount. So step 2 is, okay, let's write it as a fraction. $50 or 50, we can leave the dollar signs till later, out of 125. That was the original price. So original price at the bottom. So it's sort of like saying you got 50 out of 125 for a test. That's sort of same principle, I guess. And to turn that into a percentage, just times it by 100. And don't forget to add that percentage symbol. Okay? So the answer will be, now you can put that into your calculator or simplify it. I ended up with 40%. And that's our answer. So the question asks us to calculate the percentage loss he made. So he made a 40% loss from his original value. Okay, our next question involves finding the selling price after a discount or markup. And it says calculate the selling price for the following. So try A, B, and C and see how you go. So whenever you have questions like this, make sure you understand what's actually happening and what it's asking you. So 54% discount on something valued at $1,200 or $1,200 is asking, okay, how much are you going to be saving? Not how much you're going to be buying it for, but how much will you save? Now, some of you may be able to do this mentally using those tricks that we've learned in class, but let's show some working out. So 54% is written as 54 over 100. Discount on, so it's basically saying this 54% of $1,200. If that makes more sense. That could be over 1. Okay, and then just to make it easy for us, off can become times, and we can get rid of that dollar sign for now. And now to work this out, simplify before you multiply, cross off your zeros, and I'm left with 54 times 12. Now 54 times 12 will give us 648. Don't forget to write your dollar signs at the end. So $648 is how much you'll be saving if it was 54% off. And always double check, have a look. 50% is always half of something, yeah? So half of $1,200 would be $600. So we've got our 600 and a bit more. So we can see approximately, by estimating, our answer is correct. We are saving $648. Okay, B says an 85% markup on $175. Okay, it's not a discount, it's a markup. So this owner is going to be charging the customer more than what they bought the product for. Okay, so once again, we are doing the same thing. And before we do B, I just realized the question actually asked us to calculate the selling price, not just how much we're saving. So for A, if we go back to A, we saved $648. So the new price would be $1,200. Take away that $648 we're saving, which leaves us with $552 is the new selling price. Sorry, so that question had two parts to it. Okay, so back to B. So once again, involves the same working out, except because it's a markup, we'll be adding it to this price here. Just say it's the original price to see how much the customer will be charged. All right, so 85% over 100 of, which means times 175, and we can put it over 1. Okay, so once again, you can simplify this and then do it by hand or just put it into your calculator. Okay, I ended up with $148.75. Okay, so that's the markup price. That's how much extra they will be charging the customer for this product. Now, this isn't the answer to the question. So if this is how much extra they're charging us, what's the selling price? So therefore, the selling price you will see in the shop will be the original price they bought the product for plus the 85% markup, which is $148.75. Which leaves us with a total of $323.75. So that should have been your final answer. Okay, and C asked us, what about 120% markup on $350? Now this one's a little bit different. Now before you try this question, try and figure out what is actually happening. 120% is more than 100%. So that means they're going to be doubling this price because 100% is the whole amount. So they're going to mark it up by 120%. So we should have double the price plus 20% more. That's what's actually happening. 100% plus 20% more is actually the markup. So straight away I know I'm going to have $350 at least and then plus 20% more of that. But to work it out, you do the exact same thing. 120 over 100. We know that's how we write a percentage. Which is times 350, I'll put it over 1. So once again, you can simplify before you multiply. Make sure you know how to enter this into your calculators as well, because on your test you'll be using a calculator. So 120 divided by 100 is 1.2. You did it that way, times 350. So straight away, my number is greater than 1. So I'm going to have a number greater than 350. So 1.2 times 350 leaves us with 420. In this case, we're working with dollars. So that's how much more they're going to charge the customer, okay? 120% markup on $350 will give you a total of markup of $420. So the selling price, remember, this is not the selling price. So your final answer is selling price is equal to the original price, $350, plus the $420. Okay? And that will leave us with $770. So we can see with this markup, the original price has been doubled plus a bit more. So if they sold it for that price, they're making a pretty good profit on that. Okay, our next section is on finding the cost price or the original price. So if you see cost price or original price, it's meaning the same thing. So question 1, these are multiple choice questions. If 10% of an amount of money is $75, how much is 1% of that amount? So it's asking us to figure out what is 1%. Okay, so when it comes to working out the original price or cost price, the best way to do this is to work out what is 1%. What's 1% worth? That's using that unitary method. So I've summarized the question here. It's telling us 10% is $75. That's what we know. Now, is in maths can be turned into an equal sign. So I'm going to have 10% is equal to $75. And this is very similar to the process of rates. We're doing the exact same thing, working out how much one unit is worth. In this case, how much is 1% worth? All right, so all we have to do now is, how do I turn that 10 into 1? Just divide it by itself. That becomes a 1. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. Sort of like an equation as well. So 1% is equal to, well, 75 divided by 10, move decimal point once back. So we end up with $7.50. I'll write the 0 there to show it's 50 cents. And that's our answer. 1% is worth $7.50. And let's see the multiple choice. You should have had B for that one. Okay, because we can see it's $7.50. And now, just to take this further, if we know 1% is $7.50, what about 50%? If the question said, what's 50%? You just times $7.50 by 50, and it gives us $375. So with that 1%, we can basically find any percentage we want. Okay, so with question 2, it says if 10% of an amount of money is $22, how much is 100% of that amount? So in other words, what's the original price? Because remember, original means we always start at 100%. So once again, let's do the exact same thing. So 10% is $22. So turn that 10 into 1 to find out what's 100% worth, or what's 1% worth. If you decided to turn that 10% into 100 and do it that way, that's correct as well. But I'll stick to that same method. So I've got 1% is equal to, now once again, 22 divided by 10, decimal point moves one spot. So we got $2.20. Okay, that's what 1% is worth. Now, we want to work out what's 100%. Easy. Turn that 1 into 100%. We've got to times it by 100. Turn that, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So 100% is equal to, move the decimal 1, 2 places because we're timesing by 100. So we end up with $220. And let's see if we had an answer as that option. There it is. You should have had D, $222. Okay, our next question on finding the cost price says a necklace in a jewelry store has been discounted by 20%. If the sale price is $240, what was the original price of the necklace? Now you have to be very careful with these types of questions because it's telling us it's been discounted by 20%. So how much has the customer actually paid for this necklace? They've paid 80%. So in your working out, you should have had 80% is equal to $240. Because remember, they had a 20% off discount. So 100% take away 20% gives us our 80%. So just be very careful. If you had 20% equals $240, that's where you would have made a mistake. And a lot of people make that mistake. So now let's work out what 1% is worth. So doing that same process as before, divide by 80 to give us 1%. And divide 240 by 80. Now once again, you can use a calculator because on the test we'll be having a calculator. So practice using that. And we end up getting $3. So 1% is worth $3. So now to work out the original price, remember, original price is always at 100%. So turn that 1 into 100%, times it by 100. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. So 100%, which is the original price or cost price, is equal to, well, $3 times 100 is $300. And that's your answer. So hopefully you had that. Okay, let's move on to our next section on ratios. Now, we'll do some questions that involve, questions that are ones that some of you were away on production. So have a go at these questions and see how you go. It's the same process as equivalent fractions.